custodian thinks he can solve this? Rebecca Hartwell's voice dripped with disgust as she gestured toward the smoking prototype engine. Her emerald tennis bracelet sparkled under the conference room lights as she dramatically waved her hand in front of her nose. "Dear God, you even reek of motor oil." Marcus Thompson froze in the doorway, industrial vacuum cleaner still humming behind him. His weathered hands gripped the cleaning cart handle as 25 board members stared at him like he'd crawled out of a sewer. Rebecca rose from her executive chair, her Louboutin heels clicking against Italian marble like bullets hitting stone. She approached Marcus with the predatory grace of a shark sensing blood in the water. "Here's what we're going to do, maintenance boy. Fix this $3 million prototype that Stanford engineers couldn't repair, and I'll marry you right here in front of everyone." She snapped her manicured fingers inches from his face, the sound echoing through the stunned silence. "When you fail, and trust me, you will fail, security escorts you out permanently, and I'll make sure every tech company from here to Seattle knows about your spectacular humiliation." The boardroom fell dead silent. $75 million in venture capital hung on this broken machine that had been the company's golden ticket to automotive domination. But what Rebecca Hartwell didn't know about Marcus Thompson would change everything. Autonomous Dynamics Corporation rose from Austin's tech corridor like a steel and glass monument to innovation. The 50-story headquarters housed America's most ambitious self-driving vehicle startup, where billion-dollar dreams took shape in climate-controlled laboratories that smelled of leather briefcases and corporate ambition. Rebecca Hartwell had built this empire with ruthless efficiency. At 42, she commanded fear disguised as respect throughout the entire industry. Her auburn hair was always pulled into a perfect chignon, her business suits tailored to intimidate rather than impress. Forbes called her a visionary. Her employees whispered much darker words behind soundproof doors. The company's crown jewel sat broken on the mahogany conference table like a fallen king. A revolutionary quantum-assisted engine designed to power their fleet of autonomous delivery vehicles. This wasn't just any engine. It represented 4 years of development, 63 patents, and the engineering dreams of Silicon Valley's most brilliant minds. The machine could theoretically power self-driving vehicles with 97% efficiency, revolutionizing urban logistics overnight and making Rebecca the most powerful woman in transportation history. But for 8 weeks, this technological marvel had defied every attempt at repair. 4 separate teams of Ivy League engineers had failed. 89 diagnostic tests had yielded nothing but mounting pressure and sleepless nights. The engine would start, run for exactly 16 minutes and 42 seconds, then overheat and shut down with the same cryptic error message. Harmonic resonance failure detected. Marcus Thompson knew every inch of Autonomous Dynamics' polished floors. For 4 years, he'd pushed his maintenance cart through these halls, invisible to executives who stepped around him like he was furniture with feelings. His official job title read Facility Operations Specialist, but everyone knew the truth. He emptied trash cans, buffed marble surfaces, and endured daily humiliation from people who earned more in a month than he made in 2 years. What they didn't know was that his associate degree in mechanical engineering hung framed in his 1-bedroom apartment, a bitter reminder of dreams crushed by circumstances beyond his control. While his classmates transferred to 4-year universities, Marcus had chosen sacrifice over success. His daughter's leukemia treatments came first, always. The chemotherapy sessions cost $4,000 each. Insurance covered 70%. The math was simple and devastating: education or Emma's life. There was no choice to make. The prototype crisis deepened with each passing day. Rebecca's morning meetings grew louder, her demands more unreasonable. She paced the boardroom like a caged predator, her heels creating sharp, angry rhythms that made junior executives physically flinch. Empty coffee cups accumulated on tables like archaeological evidence of her desperation. $83 million, she screamed at the engineering team during Tuesday's disaster meeting. That's what we lose if this engine doesn't work by Friday. $83 million that could have bought us market dominance in 4 major cities. The engineers, Harvard, MIT, Stanford graduates, sat frozen in $1,000 suits, their laptops displaying the same error codes they'd been staring at for 2 months. Their average salary exceeded $140,000 annually. Their combined student debt totaled over $3 million. None of that mattered now. The engine's quantum processing system refused to communicate properly with the mechanical components. Every time they thought they'd found the solution, the machine would overheat, smoke, and shut down like it was actively rejecting their help. Team leader Amanda Chen, MIT class of 2018, had dark circles under her eyes that concealer couldn't hide. Her team had tried everything: software patches, hardware replacements, complete system reinstalls. They'd consulted with automotive engineers from Detroit, quantum specialists from Caltech, even brought in a feng shui consultant after someone suggested the office energy might be interfering with the machine's operation. Rebecca's eyes swept the room like searchlights hunting for someone to blame. "Maybe we have too many people who don't belong here," she said, her gaze lingering on Marcus as he quietly emptied the wastebaskets. "Dead weight that's dragging down our entire operation." The comment hit its target like a perfectly aimed arrow. Several engineering team members glanced at Marcus, their expressions ranging from embarrassment to barely concealed agreement. David Park from Berkeley shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He'd worked 14-hour days for 8 weeks and couldn't solve the problem. Yet somehow the suggestion that a custodian might be the weak link made twisted sense in their exhausted, desperate minds. Marcus pretended not to hear, but his engineering mind couldn't stop analyzing the problem. Late at night, when he buffed the boardroom floors, he'd study the engine's technical specifications left scattered across the table like breadcrumbs leading to a solution. The documents told a story that the engineers seemed to miss. The engine was manufactured in Switzerland using metric measurements, but the quantum calibration software was developed in Texas using imperial units. A simple conversion error could create cascading failures throughout the entire system. The pressure mounted like steam in a sealed pressure cooker. Security footage from the previous week showed Rebecca deliberately scheduling Marcus's cleaning duties during crucial investor presentations. She'd point him out to potential partners, her voice carrying just loud enough for him to hear. "We believe in providing opportunities for everyone, even our maintenance staff." Her tone suggested charity rather than employment, pity rather than respect. Email chains revealed even worse behavior. Internal communications referred to him as the janitor guy, despite his official title. Messages discussed his inevitable termination as a cost-cutting measure that would improve team morale and enhance our professional image. One particularly cruel thread, initiated by Rebecca herself, speculated about whether he could even read the technical manuals properly. HR Director Jennifer Morrison had participated enthusiastically, adding laughing emojis to comments about Marcus's limited vocabulary and obvious educational deficiencies. The whispered conversations were equally brutal. Employees discussed his presence like an unfortunate necessity, a corporate diversity checkbox that management tolerated but didn't respect. "At least he's quiet," one marketing director had said during a lunch meeting. "Better than the last guy who actually tried to contribute to meetings like he belonged there." The Swiss investors arrived on Wednesday morning, their black Tesla vehicles gliding up to Autonomous Dynamics' entrance like a silent invasion force. These representatives controlled 120 million euros in potential funding, money that could launch the company into global automotive dominance. Dr. Heinrich Weber, CEO of Alpine Engineering Solutions, had flown from Zurich specifically to evaluate Autonomous Dynamics' quantum engine technology. His reputation for technical perfectionism was legendary throughout European automotive circles. Companies either impressed him completely or failed so spectacularly that their reputations never recovered. Dr. Sophia Anderson, former SpaceX propulsion engineer and current board member of 3 automotive startups, accompanied the delegation. Her presence meant this wasn't just a business meeting. It was a technical evaluation that could make or break the company's future. Dr. Anderson didn't suffer fools, didn't accept excuses, and could identify engineering flaws with surgical precision. When she spoke, automotive engineers across 3 continents listened with the reverence usually reserved for religious leaders. The demonstration was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. The entire company held its collective breath like patients waiting for test results. Marketing had already prepared press releases announcing the successful partnership. Sales teams had drafted proposals for European expansion that would triple their revenue within 18 months. Rebecca's desperation showed in increasingly obvious ways. Her usually perfect makeup appeared smudged by Wednesday evening. Her personal assistants scurried through hallways carrying endless cups of coffee and stress management supplements that barely kept her functional. The executive restroom had become her private screaming sanctuary, where she unleashed frustration that couldn't be displayed in public view. Security guards reported hearing muffled shouting and the sound of expensive heels kicking metal trash cans with enough force to leave dents. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his invisible existence, watching engineers work 18-hour shifts, consuming energy drinks like lifelines and developing increasingly wild theories about the engine's problems. They blamed software conflicts, hardware incompatibilities, even electromagnetic interference from the building's Wi-Fi network. One desperate engineer suggested that the office's feng shui might be disrupting the machine's quantum harmony. But Marcus heard something they didn't, something his grandfather had taught him to recognize decades ago in a Detroit garage that smelled of motor oil and working-class dreams. During his late-night cleaning sessions, when the office fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and distant traffic, he'd pause near the engine room listening carefully to the machine's subtle vibrations and frequency patterns. This prototype's voice sounded strained, like it was fighting against itself with every breath. His grandfather's wisdom echoed in his memory. Every engine has its own heartbeat, son. You just have to know how to listen to what it's trying to tell you. Thursday morning brought absolute chaos. The final diagnostic test had failed more spectacularly than anyone thought possible, filling the boardroom with acrid smoke and triggering every fire suppression system in the building. Engineers stood dripping wet and defeated, their expensive laptops ruined, their reputations hanging by threads thinner than spider silk. The smell of burnt electronics mixed with chemical fire suppressant created an atmosphere of defeat that permeated the entire floor like a toxic cloud. Dr. Weber watched the disaster unfold with Swiss stoicism, his expression revealing absolutely nothing about his thoughts. Dr. Anderson took detailed notes, her pen moving in sharp, precise strokes that seemed to be writing obituaries for everyone's careers. The other Swiss investors exchanged glances that suggested their private jets might be departing much earlier than originally planned. Rebecca convened an emergency all-hands meeting that felt more like a funeral than a corporate gathering. 250 employees packed into the main auditorium, their faces reflecting various stages of panic, resignation, and barely controlled terror about their job security. The Swiss investors sat in the front row like a tribunal, their expressions unreadable behind designer glasses that probably cost more than most employees' monthly salaries. Marcus stood in the back near the emergency exits, invisible as always, but his engineering mind was already working on solutions that the credentialed experts had somehow missed entirely. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rebecca began, her voice steady despite the obvious trembling in her hands. "We face our greatest challenge, our revolutionary prototype engine. The very heart of our autonomous vehicle system remains completely non-operational." She paused, letting the weight of failure settle on the room like dust after an explosion. "Our engineering teams have exhausted every conventional solution. Effective immediately, we will begin aggressive cost reduction measures." The room fell silent except for the whisper of air conditioning and barely audible sobs from employees in the back rows who had mortgages and families and dreams that were about to be crushed under corporate necessity. Non-essential personnel will be terminated immediately, starting with positions that don't directly contribute to solving this crisis. Victoria's gaze swept across faces like a searchlight hunting for victims to sacrifice to the corporate gods. Her eyes lingered on Marcus with predatory interest that made several employees uncomfortable. This was the moment she'd been building toward, the public execution that would demonstrate her decisive leadership while eliminating someone she'd never considered worthy of employment. That's when Marcus made the decision that would change everything. He raised his hand like a student in a classroom, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium's acoustics. "Ma'am, I think the problem might be in the quantum harmonic calibration matrix, not the software integration protocols." 250 heads turned toward him like flowers following the sun. The Swiss investors leaned forward with sudden, intense interest. Dr. Anderson raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting from boredom to genuine curiosity for the first time all week. Rebecca's face transformed through a series of emotions, surprise melting into rage, then crystallizing into something far more dangerous: opportunity. But what Rebecca Hartwell didn't know about Marcus Thompson was about to rewrite the entire story. The real drama was just beginning, and it would expose truths that would shake the foundations of corporate America. Detroit, Michigan, summer of 1998. The auto industry was hemorrhaging jobs like a wounded giant, but Samuel Thompson's garage on 8 Mile Road still hummed with purpose and the sound of American dreams being rebuilt one engine at a time. At 75, Samuel moved with the deliberate grace of a master craftsman, whose weathered hands could read engines like sacred texts written in steel and precision. 14-year-old Marcus pressed his face against the garage window, watching his grandfather perform miracles on a broken Mustang that 3 other mechanics had declared completely dead. The engine had been abandoned by everyone else, but Samuel saw something they'd missed. His fingers traced the engine block with the tenderness of a doctor examining a beloved patient, feeling for problems that existed beyond what diagnostic computers could detect. "Come here, boy," Samuel called without looking up from his work. "Time you learned something that actually matters in this world." That summer changed Marcus's entire life trajectory. While other kids played video games and complained about boredom, Marcus spent his days in what he privately called the Cathedral of Grease and Steel, his grandfather's domain where magic happened daily. Samuel had been one of the first black supervisors at Ford Motor Company, breaking barriers in the 1970s when such achievements required extraordinary courage, skill, and the kind of persistence that most people couldn't imagine. "Listen close," Samuel would say, placing Marcus's small hand on a running engine. "This machine's got a heartbeat just like you and me. Feel that rhythm? That's 8 cylinders talking to each other in perfect harmony, 9,000 explosions per minute, all working together like a symphony orchestra." The old man's philosophy was simple but profound in ways that would shape Marcus's entire approach to problem solving. "Son, an engine doesn't care about your diploma or the color of your skin or how much money your daddy makes. It only responds to people who truly listen to what it's trying to say. Respect the machine, understand its language, and it'll never lie to you." Samuel taught Marcus to diagnose problems through sound, vibration, even smell. A slight irregularity in engine rhythm could indicate worn bearings that were weeks away from complete failure. A particular scent might reveal oil degradation or coolant leaks that weren't visible to the naked eye. These weren't skills taught in textbooks or engineering schools. They were inherited wisdom passed down through generations of men who understood that machines had souls and spoke to those who knew how to listen. The lessons extended far beyond mechanics into life philosophy that would sustain Marcus through decades of being underestimated and overlooked. Samuel had survived 40 years in an industry that didn't welcome men who looked like him, earning respect through undeniable competence and fixing problems that stumped engineers with advanced degrees. His reputation at Ford was legendary. Samuel Thompson could resurrect any engine, no matter how hopeless it seemed to everyone else. "White folks going to test you twice as hard," he told Marcus during those long summer afternoons when the Detroit heat made the garage feel like a furnace. "Going to assume you're half as smart as you really are. But engines don't lie, boy. When you fix something they couldn't, suddenly your color doesn't matter quite so much." By age 18, Marcus could tear down and rebuild entire engines blindfolded, understanding the intricate dance of pistons, valves, and timing chains better than most automotive engineers with 4-year degrees. Community college professors were amazed by his intuitive grasp of mechanical principles that typically required years of study to master. But life had different plans that didn't care about talent or potential. Samuel died during Marcus's senior year of high school, a massive heart attack while working under the hood of a Cadillac that had been giving him trouble for weeks. The funeral overflowed with Ford engineers, mechanics, and regular customers whose cars Samuel had saved from the scrapyard. They spoke of his genius, his integrity, his almost supernatural ability to solve impossible problems with simple, elegant solutions. The garage closed forever. The tools were sold to pay medical bills that insurance wouldn't cover. Marcus's inheritance wasn't money. It was knowledge, instinct, and a philosophy that would sustain him through decades of being dismissed and undervalued by people who should have known better. When Marcus's daughter Emma was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia during his sophomore year of community college, the choice was brutally clear. Transfer to a 4-year university meant student loans, living expenses, and time away from the daughter who needed him more than he needed prestige. He worked 3 jobs while completing his associate degree in mechanical engineering. Nights at a 24-hour gas station, weekends at an auto parts store, early mornings cleaning office buildings before classes began. His grades remained perfect despite exhaustion that left him sleeping in library chairs between classes and surviving on vending machine coffee and determination. The community college professors recognized his exceptional talent. Dr. Martinez, who'd taught at Caltech before settling into a quieter academic life, pulled Marcus aside after a particularly brilliant presentation on engine efficiency optimization. "You have a gift," she said simply. "I've seen Harvard graduates with less intuitive understanding of mechanical systems. Don't let circumstances dim that light." But circumstances were relentless and unforgiving. Cancer treatments consumed every spare dollar. Insurance covered 60% of the chemotherapy costs, leaving thousands in monthly expenses that made education feel like a luxury he couldn't afford. Marcus's transfer applications to 4-year universities remained unsubmitted in a folder labeled "Someday," a word that felt more like a prayer than a plan. After graduation, he found work wherever he could use his skills. Small repair shops, industrial maintenance, eventually landing at Autonomous Dynamics through a temporary agency that promised technical consultant opportunities, but delivered something entirely different. The reality was custodial work that paid enough to cover Emma's medical bills, but the title on his business card read Facility Operations Specialist, corporate language that made janitorial duties sound almost professional. For years later, he still carried his grandfather's philosophy like a sacred flame that couldn't be extinguished by circumstances or corporate humiliation. Every night after Emma fell asleep, he studied engineering journals and technical manuals, keeping his knowledge current despite his official job duties. Online courses in automotive engineering, quantum systems integration, and advanced diagnostics filled his free hours. His 1-bedroom apartment was crammed with textbooks, technical journals, and salvaged engine parts that he studied like archaeological artifacts from a more hopeful past. Samuel's voice echoed in his mind during the darkest moments when bill collectors called and medical expenses mounted like insurmountable mountains. "The engine doesn't care about your circumstances, boy. It just wants someone who understands its language." Standing in Autonomous Dynamics auditorium, facing 250 skeptical faces and Rebecca's predatory smile, Marcus felt his grandfather's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder, steadying him for the challenge ahead. The broken prototype wasn't different from that Mustang in 1998. It just needed someone who could hear its true voice above the noise of corporate desperation and credentialed confusion. The real test was about to begin, and everything depended on whether 4 years of humiliation had broken his spirit or forged it into something stronger than steel. The auditorium fell into silence so complete that the building's ventilation system sounded like rushing wind through a canyon. Rebecca Hartwell stood frozen at the podium, her manicured fingers gripping the microphone stand until her knuckles turned white as bone. She hadn't expected this moment, a custodian challenging her authority in front of investors who could make or break her company's future with a single phone call to Switzerland. Dr. Weber leaned forward in his front row seat, his steel-gray eyes fixed on Marcus with the intensity of a scientist observing a fascinating specimen. Beside him, Dr. Anderson set down her coffee cup with deliberate precision, her legendary engineering instincts suddenly alert and focused. The other Swiss investors whispered in rapid, harsh German that cut through the tension like scattered glass fragments. Rebecca's mind raced through possibilities like a computer processing worst-case scenarios. She could dismiss Marcus's comment, maintain her authority, and proceed with the termination announcement that would at least demonstrate decisive leadership to the Swiss delegation. But something in Dr. Weber's expression stopped her cold. The Swiss industrialist was studying Marcus with the same intense focus he'd reserved for the most promising prototypes. This wasn't the time for quick dismissals or corporate theater. A cruel smile spread across Rebecca's lips as a better idea crystallized in her mind. Why simply fire him when she could destroy him publicly, making an example that would terrify every employee into absolute submission while entertaining her Swiss guests with American corporate drama? Well, she said, her voice amplified through the auditorium's sound system like a judge pronouncing sentence. Our facility operations specialist has an opinion about advanced quantum engineering. The word facility dripped with venom that made several employees physically cringe. She stepped away from the podium, her Louboutin heels clicking against the stage's polished wood like bullets being loaded into a chamber. Marcus Thompson, isn't it? The man who empties our trash cans and mops our floors thinks he understands what 78 MIT and Stanford graduates couldn't solve in 8 weeks. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience like a disease spreading through a crowd. Employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats, caught between horror and fascination at this corporate blood sport unfolding before their eyes. Dr. Anderson pulled out her leather notebook, uncapping an expensive fountain pen with practiced precision. In her 45 years of engineering, she'd witnessed countless moments when breakthrough solutions emerged from unexpected sources. Her mentor at Caltech had taught her never to dismiss insights based on their origin. Genius wears many disguises, he'd said. The moment you stop listening is the moment you stop learning. Since you're so confident, Rebecca continued, her voice rising with theatrical flair, here's your chance to prove it. Fix our $3 million prototype that has stumped our best engineers for 2 months. She gestured toward the Swiss delegation like a game show host presenting the ultimate prize. These gentlemen represent 120 million euros in potential funding. They came here to see American innovation at work. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. Dr. Weber's expression remained unreadable, but his assistant was already typing notes on a tablet with the efficiency of someone documenting corporate history in real time. Whatever happened next would be analyzed, reported, and discussed in Swiss boardrooms for years to come. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper that the microphone amplified throughout the auditorium with devastating clarity. Here are the stakes, Marcus. You have exactly 3 hours to diagnose and repair what our best engineers couldn't fix in 8 weeks. The auditorium buzzed with shocked murmurs like a beehive responding to an attack. 3 hours was an impossible timeline that bordered on corporate sadism. If you succeed, which we both know you won't, I'll personally promote you to senior engineering consultant with a salary that matches your inflated ego. The offer was absurd, designed to make his inevitable failure even more humiliating. Senior engineering consultant positions paid 6 figures and came with stock options that could change someone's life completely. It was an impossible dream being dangled like bait over a trap. But when you fail, Rebecca continued, her smile sharp enough to cut glass, you're not just fired, you're banned from this building permanently. Security will escort you out, and I'll personally ensure that every tech company from here to Seattle knows about your spectacular failure. She snapped her fingers, and 2 security guards materialized at the auditorium's side doors like summoned demons. Their presence wasn't subtle. This was intimidation theater designed to terrify anyone else who might consider challenging corporate authority. Dr. Anderson stood up suddenly, her movement commanding attention throughout the room. At 67, Elena Anderson commanded respect that transcended corporate hierarchies and national boundaries. Her work at SpaceX had revolutionized rocket propulsion systems. Her consulting firm counted every major automotive manufacturer as clients across 3 continents. When she spoke, engineers listened with the reverence usually reserved for prophets. I'll serve as technical witness, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been questioned about engineering matters. This test requires neutral oversight to ensure fairness and accuracy. Rebecca's smile flickered momentarily like a candle in wind. She hadn't anticipated this development that legitimized the challenge and transformed it from corporate humiliation into a formal technical evaluation. Dr. Weber nodded approvingly, his precise English carrying the weight of industrial authority that had built Switzerland's engineering reputation. "Excellent. Herr Thompson, you have our complete attention. We are most curious to observe American problem-solving methodologies." The auditorium erupted in whispered conversations and frantic smartphone activity. Employees were already composing texts and social media posts about the unfolding drama that would be discussed in Silicon Valley coffee shops for months. This was the kind of corporate theater that created legends, either the spectacular failure of an overconfident custodian or the impossible triumph of hidden genius over credentialed expertise. Rebecca realized she'd lost control of the narrative, but it was too late to retreat without appearing weak in front of investors who valued decisive leadership above all else. "Fine," she said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Dr. Anderson can witness your inevitable humiliation, but I'm adding one more condition that will make this even more interesting." She gestured toward the cameras that Autonomous Dynamics used for employee training and company announcements, her movement sharp and predatory. "We're live streaming this entire challenge on our corporate social media accounts. Let the world see what happens when unqualified people attempt jobs beyond their capabilities." The live streaming suggestion sparked immediate activity throughout the auditorium. Marketing assistants scrambled to set up professional lighting and camera angles that would capture every moment of the coming drama. Social media managers began crafting hashtags that would trend across multiple platforms. Hashtag Autonomous Dynamics Challenge, hashtag Engineering Test, hashtag Innovation at Work. Within minutes, the company's Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter accounts would be broadcasting live footage to tens of thousands of followers across the global tech industry. Marcus stood motionless throughout this corporate circus, his cleaning cart still beside him like a faithful companion that had witnessed years of humiliation and quiet dignity. This was the moment Samuel Thompson had prepared him for, not through specific training, but through a lifetime of understanding that engines responded to competence regardless of credentials or corporate politics. Dr. Anderson walked down the auditorium aisle, her heels making confident sounds against polished concrete. She stopped directly in front of Marcus, studying his face with the intensity of someone who'd spent decades evaluating technical talent. "Young man," she said quietly, her voice meant only for his ears. "Are you absolutely certain you want to proceed? This isn't just about fixing an engine. Your entire future is at stake here." Marcus met her gaze steadily, his voice carrying the quiet confidence that had sustained him through 4 years of being underestimated and overlooked. "Ma'am, I've been listening to engines my whole life. This one's been trying to tell us what's wrong. We just haven't been hearing it correctly." Dr. Anderson nodded slowly, recognizing something in his eyes that reminded her of the most promising young engineers she'd mentored at SpaceX. That rare combination of knowledge, intuition, and unshakable confidence that separated true talent from mere education. "Very well," she said loudly enough for the microphones to capture every word. "Let's see what you can do." The challenge was officially accepted. 3 hours to prove or destroy a lifetime of hidden expertise. The prototype engine waited in the engineering laboratory like a mechanical judge, its silent testimony about to determine one man's destiny. The crowd began moving toward the research and development floor, smartphones recording every step of this unprecedented corporate drama that would either end in spectacular vindication or complete humiliation. The research and development laboratory transformed into an arena of judgment where careers would live or die based on the next 3 hours. 250 employees pressed against reinforced glass walls, their faces creating a mosaic of anticipation, doubt, and barely contained excitement. The Swiss investors arranged themselves in ergonomic observation chairs like a medical tribunal preparing to witness either a miraculous surgery or a catastrophic failure. Dr. Weber checked his platinum chronometer with Germanic precision that valued punctuality above all human considerations. Dr. Anderson positioned herself beside the prototype engine with the authority of someone who'd witnessed countless moments of engineering truth that separated genuine talent from elaborate pretense. The broken prototype dominated the laboratory's central workstation like a technological altar demanding sacrifice. Chrome and titanium components caught the LED lighting, creating shadows that seemed to pulse with mechanical possibility and corporate desperation. Diagnostic equipment surrounded the machine in concentric circles, laptops displaying endless error codes that had confounded experts for months, oscilloscopes tracing electromagnetic signatures that made no sense, temperature sensors monitoring thermal patterns that defied every theoretical model. Rebecca positioned herself near the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of Austin's skyline, her silhouette framed against the Texas sunset like a corporate vulture waiting for carrion. Her smartphone live-streamed the scene to autonomous Dynamics social media accounts, viewer numbers climbing rapidly as word spread through professional networks faster than wildfire through dry grass. The comments section filled with predictions that heavily favored spectacular failure, industry professionals placing informal bets on how quickly this would become the most embarrassing corporate video in tech history. Marcus approached the prototype slowly, his maintenance uniform creating a stark contrast to the expensive suits surrounding him like predators circling wounded prey. The crowd's whispers died as he placed both hands flat against the engine block, closing his eyes with the reverence of a master musician tuning a priceless instrument. The first 60 seconds stretched like hours in a waiting room where bad news was inevitable. Employees exchanged skeptical glances that spoke volumes about their expectations. Several engineering team members smirked with barely concealed satisfaction, already composing resignation letters in case the company collapsed from this public relations disaster. But Dr. Anderson watched with growing interest as Marcus's expression transformed from concentration to recognition to something approaching wonder. "It's fighting itself," Marcus said suddenly, his voice carrying clearly through the laboratory's acoustics. "The quantum processing system is perfect, but it's trying to compensate for mechanical problems that shouldn't exist according to its programming." He opened his eyes, looking directly at Dr. Weber with the respect due to a fellow expert. "Sir, this engine was manufactured in Switzerland using metric specifications, correct?" "Ja, this is correct, dear," Weber replied, his eyebrows rising slightly with genuine interest. "Our precision tolerances are measured to hundredths of millimeters. But the quantum calibration was programmed here in Texas," Marcus continued, his hands still resting on the engine like a doctor checking a patient's pulse. "American programming typically uses imperial measurements as the default system." Rebecca's confident expression flickered momentarily like a candle in wind. She hadn't expected technical dialogue that revealed actual knowledge of the manufacturing process and international engineering standards. Marcus nodded with growing certainty, his voice gaining strength as the technical logic unfolded like a map leading to treasure. "That's the first problem. The quantum system is trying to control mechanical components that are 0.004 inches different from what it expects. It's like trying to conduct a symphony orchestra when every instrument is tuned to a slightly different key." "May I start the engine?" Marcus asked Dr. Anderson, who nodded with curiosity that had evolved into genuine professional interest. The machine roared to life, filling the laboratory with the deep rumble of controlled explosions that seemed to shake the building's foundations. But where others heard normal engine sounds, Marcus heard a complex conversation between components that were struggling to communicate. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory like wisdom passed down through generations. "Engines speak to those who know their language, boy. You just have to listen with more than your ears. Listen carefully," he said, raising his voice over the mechanical symphony. "At 3,200 RPM, there's a harmonic frequency mismatch that shouldn't exist in a properly calibrated system." He pointed to the diagnostic screen displaying data streams that looked like mathematical hieroglyphics to most observers. "The pistons are hitting their optimal rhythm, but the quantum sensors are reading vibrations that don't match the programmed parameters. Your engineers have been chasing software ghosts when the problem is mechanical harmony that's been disrupted by measurement system conflicts." Dr. Anderson stepped forward, her engineering instincts fully engaged for the first time in weeks. "Explain the harmonic theory in detail." Marcus's confidence grew as he entered territory where his grandfather's wisdom merged with formal engineering knowledge. "Every engine has a natural frequency, the RPM range where all components work in perfect synchronization. This prototype was designed to operate at 3,600 RPM for optimal efficiency. He gestured toward the oscilloscope displaying wave patterns that looked like electronic heartbeats. But the quantum system was calibrated to expect imperial measurements, so it's trying to maintain a different harmonic frequency than what the mechanical components can actually deliver. See those irregular spikes every 16 minutes? He pointed to data that had puzzled engineers for months. That's the engine trying to find its natural rhythm, while the quantum system forces it into an artificial pattern that creates cumulative stress. Amanda Chun, the MIT-trained team leader, pushed through the crowd with a mixture of professional curiosity and wounded pride. That's impossible. We tested harmonic frequencies extensively during the development phase. Marcus looked at her with respectful disagreement that carried no trace of arrogance or condescension. You tested the frequencies that the quantum system was programmed to expect, but the actual mechanical components are singing a slightly different song based on their actual physical specifications. Dr. Weber exchanged meaningful glances with his Swiss colleagues, their expressions revealing calculations that extended far beyond simple technical assessments. This wasn't the rambling of an unqualified maintenance worker. This was sophisticated acoustic engineering analysis that addressed fundamental design integration issues they'd been discussing in private meetings for weeks. Marcus moved to the prototype's technical documentation, spreading blueprints across the laboratory's stainless steel workstation. His finger traced specifications with the precision of someone who'd studied these documents during countless late-night cleaning sessions when the building was empty except for security guards and janitors. The crankshaft was machined in Zurich to 75mm diameter, he said, pointing to Swiss engineering specifications that were printed in multiple languages. But the quantum calibration assumes 3.653 inches, which converts to 92.7762 millimeters. Dr. Anderson leaned over the blueprints, her fountain pen following his calculations with growing amazement. Continue with this analysis. Mathematically, they should be identical, but mechanically they're different, Marcus explained, his confidence growing as the technical logic unfolded like a perfectly engineered mechanism. Manufacturing tolerance in Switzerland allows plus or minus 0.001 millimeters. American tolerance typically allows plus or minus 0.005 inches, which equals roughly 0.127 millimeters. He pulled out digital calipers from the diagnostic equipment, measuring various engine components with practiced efficiency that spoke of years working with precision instruments. The Swiss components are manufactured to much tighter tolerances than the quantum system expects. The pistons, connecting rods, even the timing chains, everything is manufactured to Swiss precision standards, but the AI assumes American tolerance ranges. Marcus continued, his voice gaining authority as he entered territory where theory met practical application. This creates a cascading synchronization error throughout the entire system. The quantum processing constantly microadjusts, trying to compensate for imprecisions that don't actually exist. It's like a conductor trying to correct musicians who are already playing perfectly, creating discord where harmony should exist naturally. Rebecca's live stream comments exploded with engineering discussions that she hadn't anticipated. Viewers were sharing the stream across professional networks, and several Tesla, Ford, and BMW engineers joined the conversation with technical questions and grudging admiration for the analysis they were witnessing. Amanda Chun studied the measurements with her MIT training, finally connecting to Marcus's intuitive analysis. The tolerance differential creates cumulative timing errors, she muttered, her expensive education suddenly making sense in ways her professors had never explained. Dr. Weber stood up, examining the measurements himself with the methodical precision that had built Switzerland's reputation for engineering excellence. After several minutes of careful calculation using his own instruments, he nodded slowly with something approaching respect. The analysis is mathematically correct and addresses fundamental integration issues that our own engineers identified but couldn't resolve. So how do we fix it, Dr. Anderson asked, her notebook filled with technical observations that would revolutionize her understanding of international engineering collaboration. Instead of proposing expensive software modifications or hardware replacements that would cost millions and take months to implement, Marcus walked to a storage cabinet containing spare parts that had been dismissed as irrelevant by previous engineering teams. He selected what appeared to be a simple titanium disc roughly the size of a dinner plate, with carefully calculated perforations that created a complex geometric pattern. A harmonic resonance buffer, he explained, holding the component up for everyone to see. Instead of reprogramming the quantum system to match Swiss tolerances or remanufacturing components to American specifications, we add this frequency bridge to help them communicate effectively. Rebecca's confident expression cracked completely like ice under pressure. You're suggesting a $100 part can solve a problem that's cost us 8 weeks and millions in consulting fees? Sometimes the most elegant engineering solutions are the simplest, Marcus replied with the quiet wisdom his grandfather had taught him decades ago. The quantum system and the engine are both perfect. They just need a translator to help them find their common language. He began installing the buffer with movements that spoke of years of mechanical experience earned in Detroit garages, community college workshops, and late-night apartment maintenance sessions where precision mattered more than credentials. Dr. Anderson watched every movement with professional fascination that transcended her usual scientific detachment. Where did you learn harmonic resonance engineering at this level? My grandfather taught me that engines have souls, Marcus said, tightening the final connection with tools that felt like extensions of his own hands. You can't fix a soul with software updates or corporate restructuring. You have to listen to what it's trying to tell you, then help it find its natural rhythm. The installation took exactly 18 minutes, no wasted motion, no unnecessary adjustments, just precise mechanical work that bridged the gap between two different engineering philosophies. The buffer fit perfectly into existing mounting points, requiring no modifications to the original Swiss design. It was engineering elegance at its purest, solving complex problems through simple, intuitive solutions that honored both traditions. Ready for testing, Marcus announced, stepping back from the prototype with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd just completed a masterpiece. The laboratory fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of Austin traffic. Dr. Weber checked his chronometer again. 2 hours and 12 minutes had elapsed since the challenge began. If Marcus's analysis was correct, the prototype should now operate flawlessly for the first time since manufacturing. If he was wrong, his career, reputation, and future would be destroyed in the most public way possible, broadcast live to thousands of viewers across the global tech industry. Dr. Anderson positioned herself at the diagnostic equipment, her experienced eyes ready to interpret every data stream and measurement that would determine whether genius or delusion had guided the last 2 hours. The Swiss investors leaned forward with collective anticipation that could launch or destroy a company's future. Rebecca's smartphone captured every moment for tens of thousands of online viewers who'd become emotionally invested in this unlikely engineering drama. Start the engine, Dr. Anderson commanded with the authority of someone who'd witnessed history being made in laboratories across 3 continents. The moment of truth had arrived. 78 previous attempts had failed spectacularly. Could a facility operations specialist with a community college degree succeed where teams of MIT graduates had failed for months? The prototype held its mechanical breath, ready to reveal its secrets to anyone who'd truly learned to listen to its voice above the noise of corporate politics and academic prejudice. The ignition key turned with a metallic click that echoed through the silent laboratory like the sound of destiny engaging its gears. 250 people held their collective breath as the prototype awakened from months of frustrated dormancy. The initial rumble filled the space with mechanical thunder that seemed to shake not just the building's foundations, but the very assumptions about expertise, education, and where innovation truly originates. But something was immediately, unmistakably different. The harsh, irregular knocking that had plagued the prototype for 8 weeks was completely gone. In its place emerged a smooth, confident purring, the sound of quantum processing and mechanical precision working in perfect harmony for the first time. Each combustion chamber contributed to a symphony that made Dr. Anderson's eyes widen with the recognition that comes from witnessing something that shouldn't be possible according to conventional wisdom. This was what automotive perfection sounded like when different engineering traditions learned to speak the same language. Marcus stood beside the prototype, his weathered hand resting lightly on the vibrating surface. Where once he'd felt the desperate struggle of components fighting against electronic confusion, Now he sensed the calm confidence of machinery operating within its natural rhythm. The harmonic buffer had worked exactly as his grandfather's wisdom had predicted it would. The diagnostic screens exploded with green indicators for the first time in 63 days. Temperature readings stabilized in optimal ranges that exceeded theoretical maximums. Pressure sensors registered perfect compression across all cylinders with precision that made Swiss engineers nod with approval. The quantum system's error messages vanished completely, replaced by steady streams of operational data that made the MIT engineering team gasp in collective amazement and professional humiliation. "Mein Gott," Dr. Weber whispered, his Swiss composure cracking as he stared at readings that his own Zurich engineers had dreamed of achieving. The prototype was operating at 98.6% efficiency, 4 percentage points higher than the theoretical maximum performance that had been considered impossible. Dr. Anderson moved between diagnostic stations like a conductor reading perfect sheet music, her trained eyes absorbing data that told an incredible story of international collaboration finally working as intended. Oil pressure steady at optimal levels. Engine temperature holding at 189 degrees Fahrenheit. Harmonic frequency locked at 3,600 RPM with zero deviation tolerance. She looked up at Marcus with something approaching reverence that transcended professional relationships. In 45 years of automotive engineering across 3 continents, I've never seen diagnostic readings this clean and consistent. The real test came when Rebecca, her face pale with growing realization that her corporate theater had backfired spectacularly, demanded the full operational challenge that would prove whether this was genuine success or temporary luck. "Fine. It's running smoothly in a controlled environment," she said, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "But can it actually power our autonomous vehicle systems under real-world conditions with paying customers and liability insurance?" Through the laboratory's floor-to-ceiling windows, employees could see autonomous dynamics prototype delivery vehicle parked in the courtyard below, like a sleeping giant waiting to be awakened. The vehicle had sat motionless for months, its advanced navigation systems useless without reliable power, becoming a daily reminder of corporate failure that demoralized everyone who saw it. Marcus nodded toward the vehicle with quiet confidence that came from understanding machines at a level deeper than software programming or theoretical modeling. "Let's see what she can really do." The prototype's power flowed through transmission systems, electrical generators, and computerized networks with the smoothness of water finding its natural level after months of artificial barriers. Dashboard lights illuminated in perfect sequence as the autonomous vehicle's artificial brain came online for the first time in 8 weeks. GPS systems activated with satellite precision. Radar sensors began scanning the environment with electronic curiosity. Camera arrays focused with mechanical precision that had been missing for months. The crowd pressed against the windows as the delivery truck's headlights brightened with confidence, its electric systems drawing clean power from the perfectly synchronized prototype engine. Slowly, almost ceremonially, the vehicle began to move with computer-controlled precision that demonstrated the seamless integration of Swiss mechanical engineering and Texas quantum innovation. It backed out of its parking space with millimeter accuracy, navigated around landscaping obstacles that would challenge human drivers, and executed a flawless parallel parking maneuver between 2 other vehicles that drew spontaneous applause from the watching employees. For 43 minutes, the prototype ran without a single irregularity, hiccup, or error message. The dreaded 16-minute shutdown point passed without incident, like a superstition being disproven by scientific fact. 20 minutes beyond that milestone, the systems continued operating with Swiss precision powered by American innovation and guided by Detroit mechanical wisdom that transcended formal education. Dr. Weber's assistant typed furiously on her tablet, documenting performance metrics that exceeded every specification in their original investment proposal and partnership agreement. The other Swiss investors huddled in rapid German conversation, their expressions shifting from skepticism to amazement to barely contained excitement about partnership possibilities that had suddenly become much more valuable. Rebecca's live stream had attracted over 80,000 viewers from around the world. The comments section scrolled too rapidly to read individual messages, but the overall sentiment was clear. People were witnessing something unprecedented that challenged every assumption about expertise, education, and where innovation truly originates. Tech industry professionals, automotive engineers, university professors, and random internet observers were documenting a moment when talent triumphed over prejudice in the most public way possible. "Shut it down," Dr. Anderson finally commanded after nearly an hour of flawless operation. "We've seen enough to make our determination." The prototype settled into silence with the satisfied sigh of machinery that had finally found its purpose after months of frustration. The diagnostic screens maintained their green glow for several seconds before fading to standby mode like a curtain falling on a perfect performance. The autonomous delivery truck returned to its parking space and powered down its systems with electronic contentment, having proven that Swiss engineering and American innovation could work together when someone understood how to help them communicate. The laboratory remained silent for long moments as the magnitude of what had just occurred settled into collective consciousness like truth replacing comfortable lies. 8 weeks of failure had been resolved in under 3 hours by someone whose official job description included emptying wastebaskets and mopping floors. Dr. Anderson walked to Marcus with formal respect that acknowledged not just technical competence, but the kind of engineering intuition that couldn't be taught in universities or purchased with consulting fees. "That was extraordinary diagnostic methodology," she said, extending her hand with Swiss precision. "Where others saw software problems, you heard mechanical poetry. Your solution was elegant, cost-effective, and brilliant in ways that will influence my own engineering approach." Dr. Weber approached next, his handshake firm with Germanic approval that carried significant weight in international business circles. "Herr Thompson, your diagnostic methodology impressed our entire evaluation team. This is precisely the kind of innovative thinking that builds successful industrial partnerships between nations." The Swiss investors began speaking in rapid German. Their conversation clearly focused on revised investment terms that would reflect this unexpected demonstration of American technical capability. Rebecca stood frozen near the windows, her smartphone still recording a live stream that had become her own professional obituary broadcast to the entire tech industry. The comments were no longer about Marcus's inevitable failure. They were celebrating his triumph while questioning her leadership judgment, management philosophy, and basic human decency. Hashtags like #RebeccaHartwell and #CorporateBullying were beginning to trend alongside #MarcusThompson and #EngineeringJustice. The moment of truth had passed, but what came next would determine whether justice was possible in corporate America and whether talent could permanently triumph over prejudice when the stakes were measured in millions of dollars and hundreds of careers. Dr. Anderson's voice cut through the laboratory silence with the authority of someone who'd never been questioned about engineering decisions or professional assessments. "Based on this demonstration, I'm making an immediate recommendation to the board and our Swiss partners." She turned to face Dr. Weber and the investment delegation, her words carrying the weight of 4 decades in automotive engineering across multiple continents. "Marcus Thompson has demonstrated exceptional diagnostic capability and innovative problem-solving that exceeds anything I've witnessed from traditional engineering teams in recent memory. His analysis was mathematically sound, his solution was elegant, and his execution was absolutely flawless." Dr. Weber nodded with Germanic precision that valued competence above all other considerations. "Our delegation concurs completely. Herr Thompson's methodology impressed our entire technical evaluation team beyond our highest expectations." He paused, checking notes on his assistant's tablet before making an announcement that would change everything. "We are prepared to increase our investment commitment by 30%, specifically contingent on Mr. Thompson leading our European prototype development program with full technical authority." The laboratory erupted in whispers and smartphone activity. A 30% increase meant an additional €36 million in funding that could transform autonomous dynamics from a promising startup into a global automotive powerhouse within 18 months. Furthermore, Dr. Anderson continued, her fountain pen poised over official documentation that carried legal weight. "I'm bypassing normal corporate promotion protocols to offer immediate advancement to senior quantum diagnostics engineer, effective immediately. The salary adjustment will reflect current market value for someone with demonstrated expertise in advanced harmonic engineering and international systems integration." Rebecca's live stream comments exploded with celebration and industry discussion. Viewers were sharing the stream across professional networks faster than corporate marketing departments could track, and several competing tech companies were already reaching out through social media with recruitment offers that recognized Marcus's newly proven value. The hashtag Marcus Thompson began trending globally as automotive engineers worldwide discussed the technical brilliance they just witnessed and its implications for their own work. Amanda Chan stepped forward from the MIT-trained engineering team, her expression showing a mixture of professional humility and genuine respect that transcended academic pride. Our entire team formally apologizes for overlooking your insights and expertise. We request collaboration on future projects, and we'd be honored to learn from your diagnostic methodologies. The transformation was complete in ways that seemed impossible just 3 hours earlier. Marcus had evolved from invisible facility operations specialist to respected senior engineer, from overlooked custodian to sought-after technical leader, whose insights were valued by international investors and industry legends. The Swiss partnership was secured with better terms than originally hoped. The prototype crisis was permanently resolved, and Autonomous Dynamics' future was brighter than anyone had imagined possible when the day began with termination announcements. But the most satisfying moment was yet to come, as Rebecca Hartwell stood frozen by the windows, her smartphone capturing her own professional downfall for tens of thousands of viewers who were about to witness what happened when arrogance met accountability in corporate America. The laboratory's atmosphere shifted like a storm front moving across the Austin skyline. What had begun as Rebecca's public humiliation theater had transformed into her professional reckoning, broadcast live to an audience that now included tech industry leaders, business journalists, and employment lawyers who specialized in workplace discrimination cases. The Swiss investors exchanged meaningful glances that extended far beyond technical assessments into questions about management competence and corporate culture that could affect their investment decisions. Dr. Weber's assistant whispered urgent updates about social media reaction and international business press coverage that was already spreading across European automotive industry networks. The live stream had reached over 120,000 viewers, with tech industry leaders sharing the video across LinkedIn, Twitter, and professional forums. Comments ranged from celebration of Marcus's triumph to harsh criticism of Rebecca's leadership style and corporate culture. Hashtag Autonomous Dynamics drama was trending alongside hashtag engineering justice and hashtag corporate accountability in ways that public relations firms couldn't control or contain. Dr. Anderson closed her leather notebook with deliberate finality, her fountain pen clicking with the sound of decisions being made that would reshape careers and company culture. The board will require a comprehensive review of management practices that led to this situation, she announced with the authority of someone whose recommendations carried international weight. Specifically, we need to understand how qualified personnel were systematically underutilized, while expensive consulting teams failed to achieve basic operational objectives for months. Rebecca's face had drained of color completely, her confident corporate mask cracking under the weight of very public consequences that couldn't be managed through marketing spin or legal maneuvering. She'd orchestrated this challenge expecting easy victory and employee intimidation, never anticipating that her victim possessed the very expertise her company desperately needed to survive and thrive. The Swiss delegation has significant concerns, Dr. Weber announced, his precise English carrying undertones that made venture capitalists and board members nervous about their investment security. Our partnership requires absolute confidence in leadership decision-making capabilities. Today's events suggest systematic evaluation errors that could negatively impact our joint venture success and international reputation. Board member Patricia Morgan, who'd remained silent during the technical demonstration while calculating political implications, now spoke with the authority of someone holding significant stock options and fiduciary responsibilities. This incident will require immediate investigation by our governance committee and external consultants. We need to understand how a senior technical specialist was relegated to maintenance duties, while his expertise could have prevented 8 weeks of operational failure and potential partnership collapse. The investigation wouldn't take long or require expensive consultants to reach obvious conclusions. Rebecca's email history provided damning evidence of discriminatory practices that employment lawyers would describe as textbook workplace harassment. Digital records revealed messages referring to Marcus as the janitor guy, despite his official consultant title and relevant technical qualifications. There was documented evidence of deliberately scheduling his custodial duties during important investor meetings to minimize his visibility and professional credibility. Email threads showed explicit discussions about his inevitable termination as cost-cutting theater designed to demonstrate decisive leadership to board members and investors. Human Resources Director Jennifer Morrison, who'd participated enthusiastically in the cruel email exchanges with laughing emojis and derogatory comments, found herself summoned to emergency meetings about hostile workplace environment policies and potential legal liability. The viral video had become legal evidence that employment attorneys would use to demonstrate systematic discrimination, and corporate lawyers were already discussing settlement strategies to avoid prolonged litigation. 3 weeks later, the consequences crystallized with surgical precision that satisfied both justice and business necessity. Rebecca was demoted from Chief Executive Officer to Strategic Advisor with her salary reduced by 50%, while her decision-making authority evaporated completely. She retained employment because the board wasn't interested in wrongful termination lawsuits, but her corporate power had been neutered permanently. The mandatory diversity and inclusion training requirement felt particularly appropriate. Rebecca, who'd spent 4 years dismissing Marcus's potential and expertise, now sat through workshops about unconscious bias and inclusive leadership practices. Her trainer was Dr. Anderson, who approached education with the same methodical precision she applied to engineering problems and international business relationships. Meanwhile, Marcus's transformation continued beyond individual success into company-wide cultural change. His promotion to senior quantum diagnostics engineer came with a 180% salary increase, substantial stock options, and leadership of a task force on inclusive innovation practices. The company implemented new policies requiring formal review of all employee suggestions regardless of source, current position, or educational background. Anonymous suggestion systems were installed to ensure that good ideas wouldn't be dismissed based on their origin. Autonomous Dynamic stock price rose 22% following the positive publicity and Swiss partnership expansion. The viral video had become an unexpected marketing asset, demonstrating the company's commitment to recognizing talent wherever it emerged. Recruitment applications increased by 60%, with many candidates specifically mentioning the inspiring story of meritocracy triumph and corporate justice that had been broadcast to the world. The most satisfying moment came 4 months later when Rebecca approached Marcus privately in the employee cafeteria, her designer suits replaced with more modest professional attire that reflected her reduced status and salary. Her previously arrogant demeanor had been softened by hard lessons about humility, respect, and the consequences of treating people as disposable based on assumptions about their worth or capabilities. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly, her words carrying genuine remorse that seemed to surprise even herself. "And I'd like to ask for guidance about building more inclusive leadership practices." Marcus looked at her with the same grace his grandfather had shown to customers who'd initially doubted his mechanical expertise before witnessing results that changed their minds completely. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow and learn from their mistakes, Rebecca. The question is whether you're ready to listen with the same attention you'd give to a machine that needs proper repair and maintenance." Corporate justice had been served in ways that were proportional, educational, and ultimately redemptive for everyone involved. 1 year later, 12 months after that fateful Thursday afternoon, Marcus Thompson stood in Autonomous Dynamics' expanded international engineering facility, watching Swiss and German technicians install equipment for the European autonomous vehicle production line that would revolutionize urban logistics across 3 continents. His innovative diagnostic designs now powered delivery trucks across Zurich, Munich, Frankfurt, and Berlin, their engines purring with the harmonic perfection he discovered in a moment of corporate desperation and personal vindication. The framed community college diploma still hung in his apartment, but now it shared wall space with patents, industry awards, and a photograph of him shaking hands with Dr. Weber at the Geneva Auto Show where he'd been recognized as Automotive Engineer of the Year. His grandfather's garage wisdom had evolved into million-dollar engineering decisions that bridged continents and challenged assumptions about where innovation truly originates. Emma's leukemia treatments were now fully covered by his executive health insurance, and she was thriving in ways that made every struggle worthwhile. Her bedroom walls were covered with pictures of her father receiving engineering awards and recognition that proved dreams could survive even the darkest circumstances. The most powerful lesson had nothing to do with engines or corporate politics. It was about recognizing that expertise comes wrapped in unexpected packages. And the question isn't who has the most impressive credentials, but who has the dedication to truly understand the problem and find elegant solutions. Sometimes the janitor knows more than the engineers. Sometimes the custodian sees solutions that PhD graduates miss completely. Sometimes the person emptying your trash can hold the keys to your company's salvation. The real innovation happens when we stop making assumptions about people based on their current circumstances and start listening to what they actually know, regardless of how they learned it or where they currently apply their talents. If this story inspired you to look beyond assumptions and recognize hidden talent in your own workplace, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Have you ever witnessed someone's potential being completely overlooked because of prejudice or corporate blindness? Your experience might become the next viral story of justice, recognition, and the triumph of competence over credentials that changes how we think about talent, expertise, and human potential in corporate America.